Ajnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangun Langayate Gare Yat Kripa Taraham Bande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Paramanandamaravam Shri Chaitanyeshwaram. Hare Krishna. So, we should talk about book distribution, right? Since we're in the marathon. Now, there's a book by HG Prabhuji called Our Family Business. Right? So why is it our family business? Well, our spiritual master, our founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, when he was a householder, this is in the year somewhere about 19, I think even before he got initiated. He went from Allahabad, where he had a business, had a chemical concern. Now it's called Prayagraj. That time it was Allahabad. So he went from there to, during Kartik, like everybody been to Vrindavan during Kartik, right? So he went to Kartik, be with his spiritual master, and he met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in Radhakund. So there he was giving a series of lectures. And one time he was with him, they were on a walk, and he said, there is a fire within the mud. What happened was at that time, they had made a marble temple in Kolkata, in Bagh Bazaar, and that's Calcutta 3. And the devotees were bickering over who gets what room, which office, like that. So he called it a fire within the mud. And he told, at that time, better to sell the marble of the temple and print books. And he told Srila Prabhupada, who at that time was a householder, and he had with him his first son, who was small. So he said, if you ever get money, print books. So that instruction stayed with Srila Prabhupada. And even when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur made the Bagh Bazaar Gaudiya Mutt, in the temple room right in front of the deities, there was a printing press. And it was an old style printing press, It was called a treadle press. You put one sheet in, and then take that out, put another sheet in, and it comes down and makes an impression. And you make the typesetting by lead letters, right? Sounds really ancient, doesn't it? I bet you none of you have seen that, right? One letter at a time, right? They make a line, then they make a page, and then they put it in the machine, and there's a roller that comes over the top of the letters and puts the ink, and then it comes down and hits the paper and makes an impression. Right? It's called a treadle press. Anybody seen one? Yeah, you've seen one. Okay. Well, you're older, I guess. We used to have one in the basement of the Gurukul. We had a treadle press. And then we used to use that just for proofreading purposes. And then we would later on print with letter offset. But first we had to make one page, and that's what we used, a treadle press. And then eventually what happened was that when computers came, sometime in the 80s, personal computers, Nathji, Dr. Narendra Desai, also his initiated name was Nathji, he gave me, I think he gave me $10,000 in those days. And I went to New York City and brought the first computer for the BBT back, I forget, maybe 84, 85, something like that. And along with it, there was a typesetting program. So along with that, I also bought a typesetting machine called AM Verityper. And this was actually a refurbished machine. It was an older machine, refurbished machine. And but it worked, and it was optic based. So inside there was like light and a camera, and the whole developing of the film happened right inside the machine. Even that's pretty antiquated compared to what we have today. But in those days, it was high tech. So this printing is our business. That's what we do. We do printing. And why? Because that was the instruction that Srila Prabhupada got from his Guru Maharaj. If you ever get money, print books. So that's what he was doing. Although he had a room in Radha Damodar, right? He had a room, he had two rooms in Radha Damodar. Has everyone seen Prabhupada's rooms in Radha Damodar? Right? Yeah. One this side, one that side veranda. You know how much he was paying in those days? 5 rupees. And along with that, he got a plate of Radha Damodar's Mahaprasadam every day. So that's where he stayed. But actually, Brahmananda told us, Brahmananda Prabhu, he told us that Srila Prabhupada, although he had that room, he spent a lot of time in Delhi. And if you go to Chandi Chowk, there's a road called Naya Sarak. It goes from the main road inside to a place called Chippiwada. And Srila Prabhupada was living in Chippiwada. So the first canto of the Bhagavatam was actually written in that temple of Chippiwada. So it's a very auspicious place. And Gopal Krishna Maharaj got that temple, and it's under the management of ISKCON now. Very beautiful set of deities there. So Prabhupada was living there on the first floor, and in the room that's marked where the deities are, so you don't walk over the top of the deities. So for us, that's a very important place of pilgrimage, is where Prabhupada. And the reason why he was staying there, because in Chippiwada, all the printers who had treadle presses were there, and they would make one page, give it to him, he would make the corrections. He would give the page back, then they would typeset it, with all the corrections, and then make out another proof, and then he would finalize it before they print it. So at the same time, he was translating the Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's a very important place for us. And it's a place where Prabhupada wrote the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And when it was completed, then he had an idea to go to America. And so a lot of times, devotees are thinking how they'll go and they'll live in Vrindavan. But here we see that Srila Prabhupada was living in Vrindavan, and he was living in Radha Damodar. And everybody knew him. He was quite a well-known figure there in Sri Vrindavan Dham, well respected. But he left that specifically to follow the instructions of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And when he went to America, what did he take with him? He took with him his books. When he got the 3 volumes completed of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, then he loaded them on a ship and took them to America. And what he said is that he was following the instructions of his Guru Maharaj blindly. He didn't know what would be the result, but he was following. And when he was first there in America, his way of maintaining oneself was by selling books. He used to sell his books to bookshops and the like. One time there, Leela Amrita is there, that he did a program in the Indian consulate or the Indian embassy, maybe the Indian embassy in New York. And after he gave a lecture, and then he was selling books after the lecture. And there was a young man who was sitting in the audience, and who, was a first timer there in the audience, and Srila Prabhupada engaged him to, open the box and set out the books and help them sell the books. And later on, that same person became one of the first devotees. I forget what his name. He never really got initiated, but he was still around there in New York. I remember meeting him even in the year 1980 or so. I lived in New York for about a year, and at that time I met him, that same person that was helping Srila Prabhupada. So why? Why is this our family business? Why is book publication and book printing and book distribution so important? Well, first of all, it's the order of our the previous acharyas. We see even Narottam Das Thakur and others were in book publication and book distribution, right? And it's the order of my Param Guru and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur to Srila Prabhupada. And he gave that order to us, right? And you all have received that order from a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. So it's coming down in disciplic succession. And why? One can ask why. Well, it's not an economic engagement, although Srila Prabhupada clearly said, if you distribute my books, everything will come. Men, money, whatever you need. And actually, Srila Prabhupada mentions that whatever you see in ISKCON, whatever development there is in ISKCON, whether it's devotees or buildings or goodwill, reputation, whatever it is, it's come about by the distribution of these books. We're not a sentimental movement. Our movement is based on solid philosophy. And that is coming from Bhagavad Gita, Krishna's words, and Krishna's pastimes from Srimad Bhagavatam. So by distributing these books, what happens? People in the material world are suffering. Everyone is thinking that if I work hard enough, that I will be happy, I will enjoy. Okay? But the material world is such that no matter what you're trying to do materially, ultimately it's not enough, whatever it is, right? Earning money, etc., etc. People think that if I have a nice family, if I get in trouble, my family will help me. But what is the real trouble of life? The real trouble of life is old age, disease, and death. Now, what can family members do for you at the time of death? Right? What do you have to do at the time of death? You have to think of Krishna. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, whoever thinks of me when they're leaving this body, they attain my nature without fail. So the real problems of life, it's on us. We can't really expect the family members to really help us do that. And in Bengal, there's a saying: whatever your budget is, it's tested at the time of death, right? When you leave this world. So the thing is that human life is meant to solve the problems of life. Basically, people think the problems of life are a bread problem. Right? Our Father who art in heaven, give us our daily bread. And many religions are based on that. They approach God for economic development, and certainly that is a fact. Where there is less belief in God, there's less economic development. When there's strong faith in God, there's more economic development. But there's more than that to real religion. Just economic development is not the purpose of religion, not at all. Although it's a side factor. Also a side factor of devotional service is knowledge and renunciation, detachment. But those aren't the real things. The real thing is establishing our lost relationship with Krishna. Right? Everyone in the material world is looking for a relationship. A relationship is everything. Um, and a loving relationship. This is what people are after. But in this material world, it's like Prabhupada gives the example. Uh, the Supreme Lord is the Supreme Purusha, and we're all Prakriti. We're meant to be enjoyed by the Purusha, right? Just like in the relationship between husband and wife, the husband is supposed to be the enjoyer and the wife is supposed to be enjoyed, right? That's the relationship. And that relationship in this material world is filled with issues. I won't say problems, but we'll say issues. Okay, all kinds of issues. But the real relationship that we're looking for is with Krishna in the spiritual world. Right? And those relationships with Krishna are there, just like here in the material world, there's relationships. Either you're somebody's friend or somebody's parent or somebody's servant or somebody's lover here in the material world. So those relationships are also there in the spiritual world, but they're with Krishna. Therefore, our real business is to go from this material world, which is temporary and filled with suffering, dukkhalayam and ashashvatam, and try to get to the spiritual world, which is where our real nature is. Our real nature is we're not this body, we're spiritual. Right now, we're trying to find spiritual happiness in the material body. So you can understand the difficulty in that, right? Our nature is spiritual, but we're in this material body. So because we're identifying with the material body, we're threatened by non-existence. Right? We understand that our existence depends on this body, which is wrong, but that's our illusion. And therefore, as long as we're in this body, we think that we have to, and certainly the body should be protected, but not because it's our eternal identity, right? It's only a temporary covering, like a shirt, right? The shirt is covering me, but it's not who I am. It's just who's covering me. The same way the body is covering me, right? And the body is changing. Sometimes you might have an Indian body. Sometimes you might have an American body. Sometimes you might have a Russian body. You might even have a lower Slavonian body, wherever that is, right? So that's not our real identity. And therefore we're in illusion, thinking that we are this body. And thinking that we can be happy through the senses of this body. So now everybody in the material world is in the same situation. They're stuck in this idea that I'm working towards happiness. And what is that happiness? It's something to do with this material body. And due to that illusion, they're suffering. Okay? Now, as a devotee, when you chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. It's a spiritual sound vibration, enters the ear, purifies the intelligence, and it enlivens the eternal spirit soul, which we are. So people need to come to that understanding. Right? They need to come to that. Until they come to that understanding, they're suffering. Right? So what this book distribution does, it engages them in their eternal occupation of serving Krishna. Right? So there's a lot of social welfare work that's going on in the world, feeding people or helping people, clothing people, right, that are needy. But that's really not ultimate benefit. I mean, there's two types of benefits. One is prayas and one is shreyas. Prayas is some immediate benefit. Right? Kids, they want to play. They don't want to hear. They want to play. right? Prayas. I want to play. But you send them to school. Why do you send them to school? Because of Shreyas, the ultimate benefit, right? They don't go to school, learn how to read, then they'll suffer later on in life, right? So devotional service means Shreyas, the ultimate benefit of the living entity. When you give someone a book, it initiates their Shreyas, their ultimate benefit. They are on a trajectory of going down. In the material world, there's this apathy. No, what's the word? Atrophy. Things gradually diminish, right? So if someone comes in the material world and due to being overly attached to the senses, they're involved in sense gratification. But that sense gratification becomes more and more degraded. Uh, you know, People take intoxication, they're having an illicit sex life, meat eating, gambling, right? And just they're going down. So when they get one of Srila Prabhupada's books, their trajectory changes. Instead of this downward spiral towards hell, they're now going back the spiral staircase back home, back to God, just by taking a book and giving a donation. What does Srila Prabhupada say? Srila Prabhupada says their material life, and we're all in material life, right? We're in material life. But when they do this simple act of taking a book, giving a donation, their material life is mortally wounded. Mortally wounded. Right? You know, if you get shot in the arm, you're going to live. Right? But if you get shot in the stomach, chances are you're going to die. So it's called a mortal wound. So this material life, we're going along, we're trying to enjoy, but when you get a book, that's over. Right? It may take some time, we don't know when, but that's over. The intelligence and the wherewithal and the arrangement of Krishna to come out of that idea that I can enjoy in this material world starts. It begins. Right? So that to distribute books, you have to have some compassion for people. Compassion. Compassion is very important. You have to have some knowledge to understand where people are at and why they're suffering. Because on the surface, people are walking along with their friends and they're laughing and joking and whatever it is, right? But actually, they're suffering. And they're headed towards more suffering. So there's a book that is written by Vijay Das. It's called The Treasures of the Brihat Mridanga. How many have seen that book? Did you read it? Yeah, so in there, it talks about compassion. How we have to understand our situation, understand their situation, and try to elevate them. And that's book distribution, is the way to elevate them. And, by book distribution, people will become devotees. There's so many times when you distribute a book, it may not be the person that takes the book that even actually gets the full advantage. Certainly some advantage is there, but sometimes they put it on the shelf. It sits there for years. Somebody else visits the house and say, hey, what's this book? And, well, go ahead, take it, read it. So they read it and they become a devotee. Right? There was one devotee in the temple where I joined back in 73. And he was working, he was a student, he was working at a car wash. And somebody had thrown the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. They cleaned the car and threw it in the trash. Right? So he was working there and he found the teachings of Lord Chaitanya in the trash. He read it, became a devotee, came to the temple. So book distribution makes devotees. It's the highest form of compassion. It's the highest form of welfare work that you can do for anyone, is to give them one of Srila Prabhupada's books. And so, in order to actually do book distribution, it's kind of like overcoming all of our conditioning. We're conditioned from time immemorial, right? And our mind has many different impressions in it. And mind has been fully in control of what we do and what we don't do for a long time, as long as we've been in this material world. When you change body, you keep the same subtle body, right? The subtle body carries the soul to the next body, like the wind carries the fragrance of a rose, right? So you got that same mind and that same intelligence that's been through 8,400,000 different bodies. You can imagine how conditioned it is. And what is it conditioned to? Sense gratification. So book distribution is the antithesis of sense gratification. So the mind naturally wants to object. Mind is going to think of 1,001 excuses why you don't need to do book distribution. It's too cold, it's too hot, I'm tired, I'm hungry, I'm this, I'm that. So just 1,001. So there has to be a certain amount of determination, understanding what actually I'm doing by this distributing books and how I'm benefiting people, right? But if we can overcome the mind, which is very powerful and very strong, uh, but it's not more powerful than Krishna, and it's not stronger than Krishna. It's actually the energy of Krishna. And by the arrangement of Krishna, we can overcome the mind and its determination to have us not do devotional service, specifically book distribution, by Krishna's mercy. So, a successful book distributor is um, like a beggar, right? A sannyasi, the appropriate mm, name for a sannyasi is Tridandi Bhikshu. Prabhupada used to have that on his letterhead. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Tridandi Bhikshu. Bhikshu means beggar. So we're beggars, transcendental beggars. And we're begging Krishna to give us the determination to try to serve him, right? The determination to face the obstacles and the difficulties that are there in his service, to overcome them and try to understand through knowledge what our position is and what is the position of the conditioned souls and how they're benefited by taking one of Srila Prabhupada's books. And if we can do that, then we're um, successful in our family business. Everybody wants to be successful, right? But people really don't know what success is. And success is that we overcome this birth, death, old age, and disease. And that can be done by absorbing ourselves in the family business. So, Hare Krishna. Thank you for listening. Any questions? Compassion. Compassion is such an important thing. It's people, they have compassion, but they have compassion for the body, the material body. We should have compassion for the soul. Body is, here today and gone tomorrow, but it's the eternal spirit soul that we need to have compassion for. We used to do this street play in New York City. Um, we'd have kirtan, and then some devotees would dress up in regular clothes, and one lady would come out in front of the kirtan party and start screaming, my husband, he's drowning. And there would be a guy a devotee, dressed in regular clothes, and he'd be like struggling, right? And then all the people would look, and they all come and see that, this lady shouting, and the guy's, trying to figure out what's going on here. And then she starts shouting, "He's drowning! He's drowning!" Then another devotee dressed up like Carmen comes, "Don't worry, I'll save him." So he goes like he's swimming, gets up to the person that's like drowning, wrestles with him, gets his coat off, comes back and says, "Here." And she screams, "That's not my husband, it's his coat." So you can imagine on a crowded street, New York City, this drama. Now we've got 50 people watching the tape. And then the devotee comes out and says, "The purport of this is that we're not this body. We're actually eternal spirit soul." And they preach street plays. Prabhupada liked those street plays. And some of the devotees in New York were pretty expert at it. They were called the Vaikuntha players. So, this is real compassion to save the eternal spirit soul. And through book distribution, that's the means. It brings us to a different level of devotional service. Having faith in Krishna is kind of a no-brainer in India because, everybody in their home celebrated Janmashtami, right? Pretty much. And so Krishna's God, they can accept that. It's not too difficult. But then coming to understanding that Lord Chaitanya is God, that's another level. So in order to appreciate, and there's 4 Vaishnava sects, but at least 2 of them for sure don't accept that Lord Chaitanya is God. So that's another point. But in order to have faith in Lord Chaitanya, do you know that Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj says that if you try to worship Radha and Krishna without worshiping Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it's demoniac. Right? That's a very heavy statement, but it's a fact because in order to understand the relationship between Radha and Krishna, it's not possible without the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's just not possible. He came to give that. And in order to get the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you need the mercy of Lord Nityananda. When you look at the life of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he delivered very elevated persons, like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was a householder living in Jagannath Puri, and he helped Lord Chaitanya when he fainted in front of the Jagannath deity. And then he was such a scholarly person that sannyasis would come to learn the Vedas from him because he was so scholarly. So he was seeing Lord Chaitanya, who was a young sannyasi, come to Jagannath Puri. And he was thinking, this sannyasi is very beautiful. He may become susceptible to the attraction of women. So I'll try to give him knowledge and elevate him, he was thinking. Right? And he's from a lower order of sannyas. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas from Keshava Bharati. And then that order of sannyas was one of the lower ones. And he thought he'll bring him up to the Sarasvat order of sannyas, which is a higher one in the Mayavadi sannyasi line. So he began to instruct Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And every day they were meeting, and for hours and hours, that went on for 7 days, he was instructing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after 7 days, who never asked a question or anything, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was thinking, does he understand what I'm saying? Because he doesn't ask any questions, he's just listening. Huh? So he said, do you understand these Vedas? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, yes, I understand the Vedas, but I don't know what you're talking about. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu he began to explain the Vedas to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya with a personal instead of impersonal explanation. And then at one point, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya realized that this is no ordinary person. And when that realization came to him, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu manifested his identity as Radha and Krishna. Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Naya. So he delivered him. He delivered Ramananda Roy. But we see that Lord Nityananda, he delivered Jaghai and Madai. Right? They were born in a Brahmin family, but very sinful. In Navadvip, they were the scourge of Navadvip. There's no sin they didn't commit. Right? In fact, it's stated in Chaitanya Bhagavat that Yamaraj has an assistant called Chitragupta who writes down all the sins of living entities. But these two were so sinful that Chitragupta, he couldn't keep up with their sinful activities, writing them down. So Nityananda was thinking, if he told Haridas, who was his assistant in preaching, if we can deliver these two, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's fame as Patita Pavan will be spread everywhere. So this was the mood of a preacher. A preacher is someone who is always thinking how to give the credit to someone else. He wanted Mahaprabhu to be famous. Now, we may go out with some material motive that my name will be announced, I'll be number one, or something with a material tinge to it. But by going out on book distribution, we can enter into that mood of Lord Nityananda. Lord Nityananda is delivering the most falling living entity. And Prabhupada describes in the Bhagavatam, in those days, there were two Jagai and Madhais, right? But now everywhere it's Jagai and Madhai, wherever you go. So to glorify Srila Prabhupada, to glorify all the spiritual masters, we want to try to deliver the conditioned souls, right? And that will be the glory of all the spiritual masters and Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for inspiring us, giving us we hear from devotees and they say that when we are distributing book out, and Krishna is actually present and he is helping us. But at times, when you mentioned mind is very powerful. It brings us back to that I distributed this book, and then we get to realize that when 20, 30 people say no, no, no constantly, and then we again go back to that.
Then you think, oh, Krishna help me. Krishna help me. Right?
And then someone takes without any effort, someone takes a book.
Can I see one of those books? You're trying to do it. We're trying to do it. Then no. But then when you depend on Krishna, you approach Krishna, then people become more receptive. Because the transaction of the book distribution happens because the Paramatma is there in their heart. And out of the causeless mercy of Krishna, he enlightens them from within the heart. Hey, what is that book? Otherwise, their mind is in a million different directions. Every second, moving here, moving there, going different places. So it's actually an interaction between you and Krishna, and who's in their heart. And he's guiding them. Right? He's Upadrashta and Anamanta. He oversees and he permits. Right? Somebody is ready to get that book. But some are not ready to get the book. We're looking for that person who's ready. And you may have to go through quite a few people to find that person. But they're out there. They've done some devotional service previously somewhere, somehow, right? So the important thing is to and if you got 40 people in a row that say no, it's pretty tough to be enthusiastic. It's not easy. So that's where the determination comes in. Sometimes it's better just to stop for a little while and chant, refocus, right? Just like on the Google Maps, you're going along and the little car is there, it's kind of stuck up, and then you hit the refocus button and you kind of get resituated and you see the bigger picture, right? Oh, yeah, right. So book distribution helps us do that, trains our mind to focus on the important thing. And, there was a book called Don't Sweat the Little Stuff. And it's all little stuff. So it's like that. We have so many things to divert us from our real business, the family business.
Prabhuji, he had a varied experience in the book distribution.
Yeah.
Today morning, like every morning, I make a attempt to, in my office, I go there, I work for a developer. I go and visit any one of them and try and make my book distribution.
In the firm.
In my firm, yes.
You talk to people.
I talk to people and I say my business is this. I come and work for a living, but my business is this. So one of the he happens to be my boss.
It's a member. Who happens to be what?
I met and approached my superior,
Oh.
my supervisor, and I approached him. In fact, we started exchanging discussions, and in that discussions, something came out that I would like to just quickly share and understand. That he started telling me that he also follows spirituality, but for him, following spirituality is the purpose of the soul here on the earth is to understand truth. And what he says that I like to, I have Bhagavad Gita, but I don't follow Bhagavad Gita as reading, but I live Bhagavad Gita. So as a boss, I could not make much of an attempt to tell him, but what exactly?
But Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Mata Parantaram Yanjat Kinchidasti Dhananjaya. Or Arjuna, I am the highest truth. So if you want to understand truth, why not try to understand that truth from the highest truth, Lord Krishna? He wants to understand truth, right? He's living Bhagavad Gita. So what's the harm if you also read it? No harm.
Yes. Yeah, right? To take one book.
Oh, then that's good. That's good. Your job is done. When he reads it, how he reads it, why he reads it, that's Krishna's business. Don't try and do Krishna's job. You do your job. Your job is, please, sir, you're very great. You're very knowledgeable. You're really a nice person. Now, can you just forget everything for a second and take this book? Prabhupada told us that. That's the method. Glorify him like anything. And then say, but let's put all that aside for a little while. Please take this book. So then what did he do?
No, it happened today. I went there and asked him which language you wanted. So I'm going to fetch.
What language is that?
He said Hindi.
Hindi. He's a Hindiwala.
Yes.
From Uttar Pradesh or Rajasthan.
He's Maharashtrian.
Oh. Why didn't take Marathi?
He says it goes well with Hindi for him.
whatever.
I think I'm sorry. His name probably he's a Gujarati. He knows well his
Yeah, Gujaratis know Hindi. You know why? Because Gandhi was promoting Hindi, and he was their guy, Gujarati guy. So they also know Hindi pretty good. Thank you.
How he overcome this? You said that while that person is
Well, um, you might think that Muslims won't take, but you'd be surprised. You know, there's one story in the book that the devotees were going to factories, and they were trying to get the factory owner to let them put up a table on payday so they could sell some books. So in this one factory, they went, and it turned out that the factory manager or owner, right, was a Christian. So but anyway, they asked permission. They didn't think they'd get it. But that Christian person said, "Yeah, go ahead. You can set the table." And they were surprised. Oh, and he said, "Yeah, because in our colony where all the workers were, somebody died. A Hindu gentleman died, and they wanted, before he died, they wanted to read a few passages from the Bhagavad Gita. So they didn't have one in the house, and they went house to house, and nobody, they went to all the Hindu houses, and nobody had a Bhagavad Gita. So they came to his house, and by chance, that Christian fellow, he had a Bhagavad Gita. In fact, he had two Bhagavad Gitas, and they were both, as it is Bhagavad Gitas. So he gave him one to read to that fellow who passed away. So he thought that this has so much value in terms of truth. So they don't have. So yeah, you can put your table here and sell books. So you never know. Even you might get rejected because somebody's a Christian or a Muslim, but you know what? In India, there's no problem finding somebody else. There's no dearth of people here, that's for sure. But if you like the devotees in the airport, if they saw that there was a businessman coming and a student, they'd go to the student first, right? But if there was only a businessman coming, they would hit up the businessman, hit him up. That was the terminology in those days. You never know. But the important thing is, if they take or they don't take, leave them with a good impression. Because sometimes, after a lot of people say no, you're getting pretty frustrated. You can take it out on the people that are not taking. You don't want to do that. You want to always leave them with a good impression. I'm not interested. Okay, sir. Thank you for stopping. Have a nice day. Thanks a lot. Which is tough to do, but with a little practice, you can do it. You stay above the modes. They are deep in the modes. Modes, passion, mode, ignorance, right? We elevate our consciousness to at least the mode of goodness and even beyond by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram, Ram Ram. So we chant 16 rounds, try to hear the chanting, try to focus our mind and go out on book distribution and stay elevated, right? Stay out of the modes. Sometimes you need to just sit back a little bit. Oh, I remember going to a table. I think it was in God Kopar. Nobody was stopping. No, it was just people were just rushing by. So I told the devotees, okay, let's just do kirtan. So we got a pair of kartals and we're just chanting, and the whole thing kind of changed. People were slowing down. They were coming to the table. and we could talk to him to take books. And I remember that time there was a Muslim guy from Gujarat, and he said, "Yeah, I like the Bhagavad Gita." You know, he was telling me how Ram, and he was talking about Ram, and he was a Muslim guy from Gujarat. So the holy name elevates us and can keep us elevated in this from the modes of passion and ignorance, which are so prominent, especially in Bombay. So okay,
Some message for those who are too shy to go out.
everybody's shy in this material world, you know, except for a few people. Most of the people are kind of shy. Ladies are trained to be shy, right? Supposed to be shy. And but yeah, some devotees have that. They call it the gift of the gab. You just go out and talk to anybody for the first time and meet them. And everybody doesn't have that. But through understanding what we're doing, that helps us to approach, gives us the courage to approach people and try to help them. They are suffering. It's a fact. So many different things they've been working for, but it's never quite right. It's never enough. It's not. It's not satisfying. So you have in your hand the thing that is satisfying them. You got what they're really looking for. What they really need is with you. So that gives you the impetus and the courage to try and share with them. Try it. Um, Overcoming that, you know, like Prabhupada said, he said that the first time he tried to give a lecture, he was really terrified. You know? One of his god brothers told him to give a lecture. But then gradually, by practice, you know, it becomes easier. Yeah.
My question, apart from this division, how do you meet Prabhupada was? I mean, how is your conversation leader?
I got one of his books. The first time I met Srila Prabhupada was through his books. There was a girl in a parking lot. Her name was Govinda Rupini, and she sold me a Ishopanishad. That was the first book I got. But I met the devotees for the first time in a rock festival. You know what a rock festival is? No? Okay. It's another era, I guess. When rock and roll bands used to come and play in a big field. And so the devotees were there, and they had a big tent. And we were up all night doing something. And in the morning, the devotees came and they made a circle right around where we were sitting. And they were chanting Hare Krishna. And they gave me a Simply Wonderful and a stick of incense and a mantra card. And I thought that the Simply Wonderful was a donut. And I took the mantra card and put it in my back pocket with my wallet. And it sat there for about a year. And after I found it a year later, it said on it, chant this mantra and your life will be sublime. So I thought, why not? I began chanting Hare Krishna. And that's when I met other devotees and got some books. But I met Srila Prabhupada for the first time in person in Sridham Mayapur. I joined the temple in Janmashtami and went to India at Gaur Purnima and met Srila Prabhupada. Any other questions? Comments? You want to share some experience like this Prabhuji did?
Last to last Sunday, I was with this person. So when I offered him Bhagavad Gita, I said, I read Constitution. So I said,
He reads what?
Constitution.
Which Constitution? The American Constitution or the Indian Constitution?
I asked him, what is that? It runs the country. And I told him, this is book which runs the universe. I offered, told him that take this book, Bhagavad Gita, it runs the universe, the whole universe.
Yeah.
He said, I will not argue with that.
Good. Absolutely correct. These books are like, when you buy a computer, you get a manual how to run it. So they're the manual for how to live in the material world and how to get out of it. Good point. Good point. Anybody else's experiences with people out on Sankirtan? Dealing with them? Yeah.
I had a question. So this is marathon going on, and there are a lot of pushing Mahabig books. Many times it happens, people say that, oh, this is very big book, I don't read, I'm not a reader. So then we show them small books, meditation, beyond birth, and then
Topmost yoga.
so they take that book, and then we feel that, oh, Mahabig book, I could not give him a Mahabig. So small book he wanted. So should we feel like that? Or at least
Well, I don't think Lord Chaitanya is discriminating so much. Although there was a time when big books were piling up in the warehouse because devotees weren't distributing. That's just because they weren't trying. And then gradually it started to move. One devotee went to a gas station in San Francisco and he convinced the gas attendant to not take money but take the Krishna book. So from that book distribution, devotees got the idea, well, maybe we can sell these books. And they started going door to door, and every day they were doing 3 or 4 Krishna books. So that's how it kind of got started with a devotee called Udimanta, a unique individual that was really enthusiastic about book distribution. Yeah, I had opportunity to spend time with him in Holland. He was part of Guru Kripa's Namhata in Japan, and I think they got kicked out of Japan, and he was in Holland distributing. So I was with his traveling Sankirtan party for some time, Udimanta. So if they don't take a big book, if they take a small book, your job is pretty much done. It's not a qualified thing that their material life is going to be over because they got a big book and not a small book. It doesn't matter. They got a small book, and still their material life is over.
he'll still be a mortal.
He's mortally wounded, yeah. Even if he steals the book, he's mortally wounded. There's a story in that same book by Vijay that a thief came to a house. This was in Russia. And he heard somebody at the door. He was burglarizing the house. And he heard somebody at the door, so he went to jump out the window. And he thought for a second, well, I better get something from here. And there was something on the coffee table by the window. So he grabbed that, jumped out the window, and it turned out to be a Bhagavad Gita. So he brought it home, showed it to his wife, and she chastised him because, it's nothing that they could use in their house, or sell or something to get some money. But then she started to read that book, right? And when she read it, she became a little serious. He began to read. He became a little serious. And they found out where the temple was, in a city in Russia, somewhere in Russia. So they went to the temple and associated with the devotees. And after about 6 months, they were both out selling books. Srila Prabhupada. So it will have effect. It will have effect.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, now just want to share my experience.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
2 3 weeks back, like in this small event for book distributions for news. So I just met a person named Vipul. He was a Gujarati. So I just met him and I told him, I just started explaining him about Bhagavad Gita. But he told, I do not have time. I told, how much time you have? He told, 2 minutes. I don't know. Okay. I told him that, what is your profession? Then he told, I'm a computer engineer. I build software. I told, what's the most important component of that software? He told, is the antivirus what is most important for that? I told exactly that. The light is there. This Bhagavad Gita will serve as an antivirus to remove all the viruses of your life. Then he got, okay, I'm convinced. And then he was convinced with that. I gave him the Bhagavad Gita.
Haribo!
That's
Just see how Krishna gives you the intelligence, right? The software and antivirus, and who would ever thought? But Krishna rushes into the situation. You're right there. You're in the middle of the battle, and he says, "Here, just tell him antivirus." So who gets the credit? Krishna gets the credit, isn't it? So it's a personal interaction with the Supreme Lord. Because why? You're not doing it for you. You're doing it for him. And therefore he steps up and says, okay, this is how we'll do it. It's kind of like a partnership. You're out there doing your job, and he comes in and does his job. And the success is that conditioned souls get an opportunity to take a book. Thank you. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Yes.
When they are distributing books, some people are very interested in. So they are also encouraging them to share their numbers
Contact Sankirtan. It's called Contact Sankirtan. If you want to contact them later on, follow up with them. Yeah, good idea. That's good. That's really important. If they take a book, try to get their number, or give them your card, our mantra card, so they can come to the temple, right? There's one devotee here. They may not take anything, but give them a card. Always have cards with you. Give them a card.
As we say that when we make a book distribution, it's a couple of minutes that we want, and then the moment we have those exchanges, probably we can make a deal with it. But the problem is, what I'm trying to ask, getting those couple of minutes, should we, as a strategy, also say that we distribute prasadam and get those couple of minutes for him, and then try and make an exchange of thoughts? That prasadam.
Well, there was a time when we were distributing candy canes at Christmas, and we weren't sure whether that was right or not. Candy canes, so they asked Prabhupada, and could we offer these candy canes to the deities? And Prabhupada said, why not? They're only sugar and water. So we were offering these candy canes, and it's Christmas time, So, if you give somebody a candy cane at Christmas, they go through this whole kind of emotional thing, and then you can give them a book. You've already made friends with them because you gave them a candy cane, and then you can give them a book and talk about the book. So prasadam is very powerful like that. Give them a little bit of prasadam, and you've already established a relationship with them. And it makes it, and it can lead into talking about the book. So prasadam distribution goes hand in hand with book distribution. It's very powerful, very powerful. Prabhupada said if they get prasadam, then at least they'll get a human birth in their next life. We need some cookies. is the cookie man. Any other questions? Experiences. Ladies, you got any experiences? Yes. He talked with you what? Angry. Yeah. See, if you stay above the modes, right? They're in the modes. And from the mode of passion, the mode of ignorance, this frustration is there. They're trying so many things to become happy, they're not becoming happy. So they're frustrated. They become angry. But later on, they think, you know, they're ashamed of their, you know, angry mood. And so if you're above the modes, then they'll think, that person didn't become angry with me. So they'll think that person is different, and you can impress them like that. So they may be in the modes, and they are in the modes. That doesn't mean we have to be in the modes. We should stay above the modes. And Krishna tells that to Arjuna. The three modes of, the Vedas are about the three modes of, rise above the modes, O Arjuna, and be transcendental to them. So the only way you can do that is by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. So if we get ourselves above the modes and we start talking to people, they'll and they see we don't react with lower mode type mentality, they'll become impressed, and they'll also feel ashamed of their own lack of equanimity. It's a good point. Very good point. Any other experiences from the lady section? Okay, well, thank you very much for listening. Hare Krishna. Appreciate it. Show something.
We have made these display boxes.
Okay.
Carry like 6 guitars to keep in the grocery stores, medical stores. So I just make this here, and we are telling the congregation to get 1 to 5 boxes and keep in some stores. This is like
Okay. These are called smart boxes.
just 1 box at all. If we order for 500, it will cost 60 rupees.
We plan to make 500 of these boxes. So each box will cost 60 rupees. And devotees can take 2, 5, 10.
So how many gitas can you fit in the box?
6 guitars.
6.
3 guitars, 3 Krishna.
So how do they know how much the gita costs?
So that we planning to tell the devotees to convey to the shopkeepers.
Or you put the price on the gita?
Yeah, on the
And where do they give the money? To the shopkeeper?
yes. So we will
Okay.
refill the.
Look at that. So how do you know what language to put?
Mix of languages.
It depends on the shopkeeper.
Talk to him and see what he thinks.
What kind of people come to his shop according to
What are the demographics of that? Yeah. That's great. And so one gita fits in here nicely? No, I mean this way. It looks a little small, but it fits in there. So you can put 6 gitas sitting on the counter. You just go back, put new gitas in, and take the money. It's called a smart box. Okay? Why not? I mean,
QR code and for them if they want to join the classes.
Okay, they can find out more about Krishna consciousness. They can register themselves for free classes. And what's this here?
Flyers.
Flyers.
Leaflets
Okay,
for Gita classes or why should we read Bhagavad Gita?
okay,
There's this pamphlet, Why Should We Read Bhagavad Gita?
right. What you'll get by reading Bhagavad Gita:
It has all these bad qualities and then there are verse numbers.
envy, lust, greed, anger. Read Bhagavad Gita, clean it up. Good. That's great. Fantastic.
I want you to launch it.
Launch it.
Just show it to everyone and just encourage them to take these so that they have to go to shops and try to convince them to.
Kind of launch the microphone. Yeah, sure. So, how many think they can put one of these in at least one or two shops? Right? I mean, you go regularly to some Kiran, right? Like we go over to Dhiraj store. I don't know if those guys that keep one. They might. Yeah. Roman stores. And say, look, can I keep this box here? Right? I'll come back. It's Bhagavad Gita costs this much, right? And just go back and see if somebody took them.
The shopkeeper doesn't have to pay anything. The devotees pay 60 rupees for the box, and then when they sell the Bhagavad Gita, the devotees just collect it and give it to them. Right?
Yeah,
It's the shopkeeper does not have to put
He
at
just
least
gives his space.
just a little space. Okay,
He'll give prasadam.
sounds really good. So, everybody's ready to take a couple of boxes and put in a couple of stores, huh? Okay. At least we'll try, right?
We have some notes here.
You know, you can say, this is a smart box, and you'd be smart to keep this in your store.
The cartons below, they may be having Bhagavad Gita. तीन कार्टन निकालो.
Right वाले
वो नीचे सब भगवत गीता है ना.
right वाला carton में नहीं है.
All those cartons down.
Boy, that's really an old one. Marathi Bhagavad Gita. This is an old print. This is really old. Is this 1996?
96.
96. Yeah, it's a pretty old book, huh? We're doing a lot better than this. you're trying to sell a book, it always helps to make people laugh. So one thing that the distributors do is they ask the person, well, what do you do? Well, I'm an engineer. So then you show them this picture and say, this guy was an engineer. Make them laugh. Okay, great. Hare Krishna. Okay, we launched the smart box, right? I know a guy that's got about 40 soda shops in near the station. We'll talk to him and see if he wants to put them in. Okay. Anything else? Thank you all for coming and thanks for listening. Hare Krishna.
Once again, we'll thank Bhima Prabhu for giving his valuable time, speaking about book distribution, encouraging all of us, answering all of our questions so nicely. We also request Prabhu to regularly give us his